There was so much Nick Cage in the previous film. This film's getting a Nick Cage out of a Nick Cage. What's going on, Dungeon Dwellers? Welcome back to Dave's Dungeon. Hope you all are doing well. It is early in the morning, and here I am making movie reviews. Jesus Christ, it's so early. But this time I'm reviewing the movie No Escape, also known as Follow Me. This movie needs to figure out which title it goes by because I found it under both. It's easier to find under No Escape, so that's what I went with for the list. But I have to say that as you can see over here, let's see if I can even. Nope, still doing it the wrong direction. As you can see, I put both of the things, and they have identical outer packaging when it comes to picture. Excuse me. Sorry. Jesus, that wasn't pleasant, I would imagine. But they have identical packaging, and I have to say that this film kind of has identical packaging to so many other horror films that you kind of get nowadays. It's trying to make whatever domestic situation, the modern situation is, scary, whether it be Host from last year or this film from last year. They're all trying to bring modern society into the horror game, and it's kind of hard to say that it succeeds in some instances, but in others, it's very clear to see that it does. So let's get into this. If you've never seen me do a review, which if you saw me do the last review, you didn't get a clear sense of this, but I grade each film by 5 criteria. And those criteria are plot, special effects, tension, gore, and killer. I grade each one on a basis of 10, and then I score each film and kind of grade it by the end. So you at least know what I thought of the film, and based on that, whether you might want to see it. So without any further ado and no more explanation of the rules, let's get into this. So the plot of the film. I have to start out with a soft 7. A soft 7. Because the plot of this film is one of those types of movies that I've described before that I'm not a huge fan of. Without giving you any spoilers, by the way, this is the non-spoiler section. This is one of those types of films that builds to a sort of ultimate point. And as I've described before, I'm not a huge fan of those because too often you're building up the rest of the movie to make that moment work. So you're building up to this sort of pinnacle, this final moment. And then if that moment doesn't work, your whole film is kind of falling apart. So I can see where critics were brutal on this film, and so were the fans. But in the end, there's a watchable gem here. And I really have to say that given the plot of the film. The execution of the film was not the mistake. I feel like this has the Picard problem of you've done everything right but failed. You've committed no errors, but at the same time the effort it didn't rise to the level of what I could see the fans wanting. Really and truthfully, the scariest moments of this film are not the moments you think they would be. Going to a foreign place and you have sort of the foreign horror of, well, if you've seen Hostel, you're going to a weird place and there are weird people there and you don't know what they're saying, and that can be a scary situation in and of itself. And so the movie plays with that a good bit. The differences between cultures. This movie is not set in your traditional American setting. Easy enough to say it's a European setting without giving away too many spoilers. But it just, you can tell where people couldn't connect to the film because of where it was set up and where sort of the whole situation devolves from. because you have an unlikely source of violence that just so happens to show up at a moment. And really all of this stuff, and like I said before, with a movie that builds to sort of an ultimate point, none of this stuff ultimately ends up mattering. So we end up caring about it for far longer than you want us to, and then you sort of, we never really get into it. You never really feel a good connection with the people who you're watching, because it, even the premise is a little bit a step away from what the average viewer is going to have an experience of. So it's hard to say that the plot really connects with anything the watcher may be trying to see or visualize with, but it just doesn't work. So that reason I'm giving it a 7. It lost 3 whole points off of the whole movie just trying what it tried. And I don't know. I don't want to say it didn't work, because I'm sure it worked for somebody, but if it worked for me, it worked for me as a moral story and as a cautionary tale about putting all of sort of your focus and influence on being something that you don't necessarily need to be or should want to be. And it causes a whole bunch of pressure that ultimately make you make bad decisions because you'll forget the whole premise of why you're being there. Yeah, let's talk about that. Special effects. I have to say that's sort of the weakest part of this movie. I'm gonna give it a 4 though. And really, I give it a 4 because it's like you didn't even really try to attempt what you were trying to do. And you sold me a bill of goods on the idea that this was going to be sort of a torturous sort of, thing that you were putting me through. You put me in the idea that this was going to be Hostile again, or maybe even Saw, but you never really delivered on that. Then you put me on the idea that this was revenge horror, and then I never really got the idea that you were going to fulfill it on that. And then your ultimate moment ends up being something completely different that had nothing to do with any of that. So, nah. Again, I have to give your special effects in this like a 4. So that's like not good. And really, special effects. What special effects? A lot of it was practical kind of situational crap that you had people in. There weren't really any effects. But at the same time, you did a little blood. You did a few setups that I liked. You did a few body horror things where you did some gore stuff, which was not bad. It just, the physical effects were fine. I don't want to say it was completely awful, but it was a 4. The tension wasn't bad. It stayed around a 6 throughout the film, so we got an 8, a 4, and a 6. Can't really tell you why, because you know something that he doesn't know, and it's kind of getting there. And if you'll be forgiven if you forget what all is kind of going on, because I really don't think the movie does a good job with this. So I mean, I'm really gonna have to give it like a 6 for like tension. So that's like an 8, a 4, a 6. I may have said 7 there, but it's really like a 6 now that I think about it. Gore is like a 2. When it does promise you sort of the gore that you would expect, it doesn't deliver on it. And then when it's out of that situation, it gives you gore that you don't need. And as much as I'm up for seeing someone be tortured, not that way, man. Come on. You can get me to that scenario far more satisfying ways to then turn around and do what you did. Like, for real. Like, what happened to that guy at the end of the film? Just a soft spoiler. He got what he deserved, man. You can't drive somebody to that kind of a level and then just expect everything to be okay without a debrief session. Somebody else should have said hey to him after that. Anyway, without spoiling so much. Jesus. Man, there's so much in this movie that could have worked, but just didn't. And it feels bad. The victim and the killer are not who you think they are. And I really feel bad that it's not the way it should be. It really, really sucks how this movie ends. And you're going to be left with a bad taste in your mouth. I feel like a lot of people are going to be mad about who's the victim and who's the killer in this film. And you have no way of seeing it coming. You have no way of knowing it's going to be a thing. You have no way of sort of preemptively heading it off at the pass. Unless you just kind of get the sense that this is going to be a dumb idea from the start. Like me, hey. So I give this a 1. I give the killer and the victim in this a fucking 1. I'm not even bothering to justify it. We'll talk about that in spoilers. So if I add up all the scores, that was an 8, a 6, a 4. We had a 3 and a 1. And we have another F, but I will say something about this F. Um, it's more like a D. It's more like a D movie. And in that sense, I'm not saying don't see it. Definitely see this film for yourself. It's just, you may get bored about halfway through. Stick with it. You may get a little mad at the end. Come back and see me if you are. Make sure you leave it down in the comments below. I want to know if this movie really got you angry. Like, I don't think it's that much of a big deal, but I can see where it would make some people upset. But at the same time, the movie was fine. It's the setup of the film. It's the utter sort of slap in the face that you get at the end that just kind of, you can't build to an ultimate moment and forsake all else. It really stops working after a point. But anyways, I'm gonna leave our. Hey! I heard the buzz go up, and I was like, my boobies are turning the mic up. I can't have this. But anyways, that's gonna do it for our non-spoiler section of this review. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave me a like. I really do appreciate it. I really do. I really, really do. It really does help the channel out, and it really does tell me that you're enjoying this content. Make sure you subscribe for more and ring the bell so you get notifications on when I drop new videos. I'm going to be dropping 2 more videos tomorrow, and then we should be back on a 1 video schedule. I had a brief sort of hiccup where I had to fall behind on our schedule, and have since sort of rectified and kind of made it possible to where we could keep moving on and make this all work. So if you've enjoyed this review, I hope we see you again soon, Dungeon Dwellers. But for now, we need you all to run away so you don't get spoiled. Spoiler section, here we come. Yeah, I'm starting to not like these types of films, if you couldn't tell. The films that build up to like an ultimate moment where it's like, ah ha ha, the witch, where we build up to like an ending, and it's like the ending is what's really what we're trying to develop, and we're not trying to do any of the rest of the stuff. And so you watch the rest of the film and you're going, okay, this situation is just going to keep going and going and going and going and going until you hit a head. And then you go, oh, well, this is really what the director wanted me to see and what this was all about. The Witch was like that. The Lighthouse was like that. That director tends to like those types of film, and I tend to struggle with that. Hereditary was the same way, and people tend to love it, but I'm still in the camp that's like, Hereditary is not good. I'll let that sink in. I said it. For those of you horror fans who are like, oh, For shame. He doesn't like Hereditary. No, I don't. I don't. It's domestic horror in a way that I don't need or want or find enjoyable to watch. So, anyways. But this film, that's not this film. This film has the problem of you really don't get a chance to like the good guy. And you really don't get a chance to like his friends. So you really don't feel bad when he kind of gets the douchey treatment that horror likes to give douchebags, you know, where if you're a douchebag in a horror film, we tend to torture you a lot. Not necessarily to even kill you, just to torture you, because you're a douche. And the film presents him that way, I want to say. I don't want to say that's just text there given what his occupation is, but the film goes out of its way to sort of present a non-sympathetic hero in a way until you get him into like the bad situation. But for the most part, I don't feel bad for this guy. I really don't. He could at any moment pay attention and everything would be fine. He could at any moment take a breath and anything would be fine. But at the same time, his friends have his this is the whole stupid part of this movie. If I had friends like this, I would literally leave them where they were. I would leave them in Russia, where we all traveled to, where we were all I flew everybody out there. I would leave your asses in Moscow and just fly home. I wouldn't say a word to any of you. I'd walk out of the building and I'd fly home. And that's the way that movie would end, and you would get no horror movie. But this kid obviously gets pushed a little further than that. And I mean, it's kind of his own fault because he wasn't paying attention, and everybody's telling him, "Hey, are you sure you're okay for some of this, and you're okay for some like extreme stuff?" And da 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 da. And it's like, yes, we are absolutely ready to kick this off. And then you get into it, and it kind of feels a little kiddie. It kind of feels like they're gonna set you up for some torture stuff, and they play with the idea of doing it a little bit, and then you get into the whole, well, we pissed a guy at the bar last night off, so we gotta be careful because he's gonna come find us later, and things are gonna go off the rails. And then, you know, now we're watching all of our friends die, and it's like, oh, this is not gonna be good. And then the movie does the cardinal sin of being like, just kidding. Yeah, you heard me right. There's a reason this movie gets an F. Because the penultimate moment, not the ultimate, second to last, the second to last moment is getting to watch our hero beat one of these villains to death. One of the villains who we think have set us all up and been a part of all of our victimization. And it turns out the aristocrats. Everyone was pulling a gag. So what did we just do? We just killed somebody. And all the rest of it's been a gag. But I don't know that. I don't know that all my friends aren't dead and that the woman that I think I really care about isn't dead. I don't know that. So I think they're all dead, and I think I have this guy. Yeah, you see where this is going. If you're not up for that kind of a stinger, I'm willing to tell you walk away now. Don't pick it up, don't bother. But if you don't mind getting stung, and you've listened this far, I don't recommend you listen to the spoiler section. I kind of tell you all to shoo away if you don't want to get spoiled. The whole point of this section is to spoil some shit, and this is the shit that need to be spoiled, so I'm going to spoil the damn ending. This shit needs to stop happening. Stop making movies that are only there for one thing and one thing only, and that's to tell me about one moment. I'm tired of this shit, and it's getting old, and it's getting boring, and I'm sick of it. Okay, this movie falls apart on the face of that. It really does. Because the rest of this film actually works. You've built a decent film. You really did. It was a worthwhile watch. I was sold the whole way through until you got me to the end, and I tried to walk up to that precipice and understand I just could not buy it. Not only that, that wasn't worth watching for all of that. That's like listening to the joke The Aristocrats on purpose. No, not even once. The joke isn't funny, and then you get the punchline that isn't funny. I think that's the whole point of this, though, was to kind of get people questioning whether they actually wanted to be what this guy is, which is a YouTube influencer or an influencer, period. It's sort of taking the piss all over that kind of subcategory of people trying to figure out their way in life, because millennials haven't been victimized, subjugated, and relegated to what everybody else has to say about them for the past 30 years so far. I'm not bitter. All right, y'all. I think that's going to do it for this movie. I have spent enough time on it, but you guys should spend some time with it. I think it's worthwhile to watch, even if you've watched the spoiler section and you've heard my thoughts on it. I still say give it a shot. Maybe it's the B movie of your dreams. Maybe there's somebody in this that just makes the performance that much better for you. Let me know down in the comments. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. And if you watch this far, make sure you drop me a like. I'd really appreciate it. And it really does make me feel good about doing this when you do that. Make sure you subscribe too. You've watched this far. You might as well. And ring the bell because you need to get the notifications about when the next two are coming up. But anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me. Your response to the videos here recently has been phenomenal, and I can't thank you enough, and I can't stress it enough how honored and how grateful I am to have you guys watching my stuff and having a good time with it and commenting and showing me that you enjoy it. So thanks for coming on this adventure with me, Dungeon Dwellers. I hope to see you on our next journeys. Until then, sleep. The final frontier. These are the voyages of the USS David Collins. Signing off.